Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Deya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahanavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. All right, I was going to close the window, but I think our music is stopped outside. Were you in there? Would you close the dining room window? The one closest to the living. Pardon? Say it again. It's the one closest to the living. I think I lost water. Is it already closed?
It was basic.
Okay. Well, it will help with sound. So we are on chapter 3, and Mark, did you say verse 34?
36.
36. Do you have a page? You probably have a different version.
In my book, it's 315.
This is page 246 in this one.
All right. So again, we're working our way through the 5 elements of karma yoga. Act. You do not achieve freedom by running away from action. How? According to your swadharma, your inherent latent proclivities, your vasanas. In the yajna spirit, the spirit of service, the spirit of sacrifice, renouncing our attachment to the outcome, the karma phalam, the fruits of action. Last element we've been working on, the renunciation of our identification with the sense of agency. I am not the doer. All right, would you help us out, please?
Arjuna vacha atha kena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha anichannapi varshneya baladiva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, but impelled by what does impelled by what does a person commit sin? Though against their wishes, O Varshnaya, constrained as if it were by force.
So This is the issue that all of us face in our practice. And I love the way St. Augustine frames it in his letter to the Romans. He says, I do not do that which I would do, and I do that which I hate. Therefore, it is not I that do it, but sin that is lodged in my limbs. What he calls sin, we would call vasana. So this is our condition. I say I'm going to get up every morning at 6, and I'm going to meditate for 45 minutes and then go to the gym before I go to work tomorrow. Sound familiar? I'm going to get in a relationship and I'm not going to try to control this person. I'm not going to do it. What's what are you doing? Who do you think you are? I'm out of here. Sound familiar? Is that what happens? Why did I do that? So there's this disconnect. There's a piece of me that knows better. I want to lose 10 pounds. Oh, but those potato chips look good. I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to eat them. I'm not going to eat them. This is the human condition, this dissonance. There's a piece of us that knows better, another part of us that just can't get it together. Now, going back to the Christian condition, the Christian frame. In Greek, which is the language of the Christian part of the Bible, the New Testament, the word for sin is amartia. It's a Greek word. And it's an archery term. Some people say it means to miss the mark. More appropriately, it's to fall short of the mark. So here's the target, here's the archer, loose the arrow and it goes. It is a spiritual impotency where my personal willpower consistently fails me. Now, none of you ever has this issue, do you? No.
Only every day.
Welcome to the human condition. Now, if you think you're special, if you think you're screwed up worse than other people, why am I such a basket case? I want to give you something that's comforting. You are so ordinary. Vyasa wrote a book about you 2,500 years ago. You are textbook. So that should give us comfort. So Arjuna's question, why do I have this dissonance? And 1,000, 1,500 years later, St. Augustine talks about the same things, or rather not St. Paul talks about the same thing. Because it's the human condition. Let's see what Krishna says about it. Anybody have any questions about the nature of the problem? All right. Going on.
Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajo Guna Samudbhava Mahashano Mahashano Mahapapma Vidyenam Iha Vairinam. The Blessed Lord said, "It is desire, it is anger, born of the active, all devouring, all sinful. Note this as the foe here in this world."
So the words he are using are kama. I prefer to translate it as craving, so that we distinguish it from preference. Then he uses the word krodha, anger, and then he uses the term, he used rajas, didn't he?
Yes.
Yes. So here we've talked briefly about the three gunas: tamas, inactivity; rajas, activity, which is born of kama; sattva, non-activity. I don't have to do anything. So here, what Krishna is saying in the Gita, Buddha steals. Four Noble Truths. Dukkha, Satya. Number one, life the way most of us live, it sucks. It's suffering. Noble Truth number two, Samudaya Satya. The truth of arise or accumulation. And as he goes in to talk about that, he again identifies it as craving, thirsty. Noble Truth number three, Nirodha Satya. The truth of non-arising. So what does that mean practically for you and me? What does it feel like to want something you don't have? Partner, I want to get rid of the partner. I want a house, can't stand the house, I want to get rid of the house. I want a different job, I want a different relationship. I want different politics. I want it different than it is. When I am convinced that change in circumstances is essential for my happiness, that's called kama. Very different than, oh, I think I'd like to go see, I wanted to go Marufuku for lunch the other day on Wednesday. We looked it up. Oh, they don't do takeout for lunch during the week. Okay, we'll go someplace else. Preference. Can you feel the difference? Yeah, when you can let it go. But the other part of us where it's insistence, that's the quality of kama. Now, the fact of our experience is I don't always get what I want. And even when I get what I want, it doesn't do what I thought it was going to do. So what happens? What happens when I have thwarted desire or unmet expectation?
Anger.
You got it. That is the definition of anger, according to yoga. Thwarted desire, unmet expectation. That's what happens when I don't get what I want. The world isn't behaving. Now it can be low level, I'm just irritated and annoyed. Or it can be really severe, enraged. All this is Rajaguna. Now we've talked about this. What is the cause of the craving? Buddha said freedom from the craving is freedom from suffering. We experience it in the ordinary mind in two states. Momentarily, when I satisfy a desire, and every night when I go to sleep. Desire, not desire, become one for a moment. The desire is gone. Fortunately, another desire arises right away. And no matter how terrible my life is, deep sleep, oh, it's a respite from the tyranny of craving. So then the question, is there a way to be permanently free from the tyranny of craving? Buddha said, yeah. Marga Satya. The truth of the path, the truth of the Eightfold Path. The truth of sadhana is a way to remove the cause of craving. Yoga will ultimately say the cause of my craving is spiritual ignorance. The Eightfold Path, the Buddha calls it wrong view. What we want is right view. What's wrong view? The one with the most cash and prizes wins. Boys and toys. That one wins. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. Beat up the world to get what you want. And if people get in your way, stomp on them. That is delusion based on ignorance. Don't believe me. Just look to your direct experience or the experience of people around you. So Nikki, she works on the front line of addiction medicine. Know any happy junkies?
I've seen moments of happiness, but
Huh?
I know I've seen moments of happiness, but not related to the addiction.
And when they don't have their drug? What's
Yeah.
that? What happens then?
It's a state of pain.
And what's it like needing to go find the drugs? Is that a good way to live? Do they tend
No,
to
it's like
enjoy
an
that?
automated.
Huh?
It's like an automated thing. It's like not. It's yeah.
Is it fulfilling? Is it enriching? Does it flowering of their humanity in that state? There it is. Now listen carefully. Yoga says the vast majority of us have an addictive relationship with the world. Just most of our addictions are socially acceptable. We don't look on the workaholic as someone who's ruined their moral character or destroyed their family and relationships. Or the person who abuses food and damages their health. Or the person who calls me up, and I get a lot of these calls. Oh, I want a relationship. I'm so lonely. I really have a right to have a partner. so painful. It's just socially acceptable, that's all. That's all it is. It's the same addictive relationship with the world called karma, raving. Raving. So Buddha would say, right view is when we begin to see that addictive relationship with the world. In yoga, we call it bhoga, B-H-O-G-A. The path of enjoyment only creates more and more bondage. Well, are we stuck with it, Krishna? I'm a bogey. I can't help myself. I want it. I want it. I can't seem to let go of it. I intellectually grasp it. But when I get that fella or that gal, oh yeah. I succeed. Yeah. Ambition. Is that okay? Somehow. Now let's see what Krishna says. Going on.
Bhuminavrityate vanir yatha darsho malena cha yathol benavrito garbha tatha tena tene dhammavritam. As fire is enveloped by smoke, as a mirror by dust, as an embryo by the womb, so this wisdom is enveloped by that desire or anger.
So, the right view, as Buddha would call it, is one of the elements of the Eightfold Path. Ultimately, the right view in the beginning is to see the path. That's a good way to start living. But ultimately, to see self in me is Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. It's already okay. I don't need any fixing. The world, Brahma Satyam Jagan Nitya. Brahman alone is real. The phenomenal world of name and form is illusory. It's trinkets and baubles. It's a hologram. It has nothing real. What was the term I heard? What people who develop a relationship with someone online? Really good word.
Kind of like catfishing.
No, it was anyway, people who, it's all online. It can go on for months and months and months. People fall in love that way. They think it's real. And the person on the other end may not, most likely not, is going to actually meet up with all our romantic fantasies that we projected on them. I had a dear friend who had this online relationship with this fellow in Britain. The guy sent him pictures. He would talk on the phone, said he did this kind of job and stuff like that. My friend flew all the way to London finally after after months to meet him. That's a lie. It's heartbreaking. It's not a relationship. Where is it? It's in my mind. So that's what I do with the world. What's the basic romantic projection? This job is what's going to fix it. This relationship is what's going to fix it, etc. I had a friend ask another friend, so and so, is it better being married? This person said, it's just different. All it is. The world is the world. Tide comes in, the tide goes out. That's the world.
Hi, Jim. This is Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, I just had a question. So when this person flew over to London to meet the person, what happened? Was he a real person or?
He was a real person, but he was a liar.
He wasn't all those things that he said he was. Okay. Wow. Wow.
It was devastating for him.
Mhm.
There's a word for that kind of thing, and someone gave it to me. It was just fantastic, and it'll come to me. But it's not uncommon among young people. It's not uncommon. You make stuff up in your mind. We do it all the time. So, Bhoga is a philosophy of life. A bhogi wants to be happy. Bhogi wants to be happy by endeavoring to satisfy as many desires as possible, not realizing the end result of trying to satisfy as many desires as possible is more desire. Who's ever had enough sex, enough money, enough attention, enough validation? So, for example, Wendy, you were a famous restaurateur, weren't you? You were famous. Did it solve the fear of financial insecurity?
Nope. Probably
Did it-
made it worse in a way.
Did it last?
Nope.
No. Did it make your relationships really fabulous?
None of the above.
But there are people who think, oh man, to be a famous restaurateur. There's a little joy in being
Yeah.
able to feed people.
Yeah. But yeah.
But after a while, it's work.
And all the baggage goes with if you don't start to.
Or Nikki, doctor. That's, you're there saving people's lives. Has that been the answer to all of your problems? And I can go to anybody's investment in whatever it is. What is this world? This world is 95 cents worth of work for a nickel's worth of joy. I'm not saying there's no joy in the world. It's just pretty limited for what you have to do if you invest your well-being in that. So what Krishna's going to say is, have a peace that's independent of the world. Last week I had a student, and we're studying Vivekachudamani. He's just now getting to the place where he's tuning up. He's being able to identify that state. I said, how would you describe it? He said, well, there's just no more striving here. Finally, everything's still. It's the antithesis of kama and krodha. Next verse.
Avrutam jnanamitena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kauteya dush dushpurena purenana cha. Enveloped, O son of Kunti, is wisdom by this constant enemy of the wise in the form of desire, which is difficult to appease.
So in the last verse, he gave us all these images of things being, and he sums it up here, meaning my wisdom, my real nature, and the joy that it reveals is enveloped by God. So let's look, it's a review for many of you, at the technology of what the problem is. So we have what we call sanskaras, impressions. They of themselves are not necessarily problematic. For example, you know that's a coffee table. Knowing it's a coffee table doesn't cause you to suffer. But a subset of sanskara is vasana. Vasati, to linger or dwell overnight, is the root. So a vasana is a specific kind of impression left in the unconscious as the result of previously performed egoistic actions, meaning I got I-ness and minus wrapped up with it. This has brought me joy. That has made me unhappy. This belongs to me. I want that to belong to me. I mean, mine. A vasana has two powers. The first is avarana shakti, or avritti, or avidya. Many, many different ways of talking about it. Avarana shakti means veiling power. It's like a spiritual sleep. I do not know who I am. I do not know what this world is. Second power is called vikshepa shakti, which means projecting power. So I project essentially three things. The first, I feel like a person, call it jiva bhavana, or ahankara, or asmita, egoism. I think I'm Jim, I think I'm my body. That always has an element of incompleteness. Then the world of name and form is seen as separate from me, with inherently joy-giving or misery-producing qualities. And the third element, kartavya, jonesing, struggling. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, gimme, more, better, different. That's all there is to the wheel of samsara, the karma chakra. That's all there is to my suffering. That's all there is to my ignorance. That's all there is to my problems. First, the non-apprehension of my essential nature, and the projection of those three ideas. Let me give you mini Maya. When you go to bed at night, the first thing you have is Avarana Shakti. It's called deep sleep. The non-apprehension of myself is the waker. Then my mind, Vikshepa Shakti, projects the dream. And in the dream, the dreamer, who is identified with the dream body, if you're having an anxious dream or nightmare, always posits, oh, I've got to find some way to keep the monster from chasing me. Oh, I've got to find a way to get out of the such and such. I've got to find where I live. You know, those kinds of dreams. And to the dreamer, the resolution of the struggle of the dream ego seems to be what's necessary. But where does the problem go when you wake up? You haven't found where your house is. You haven't defeated the monster. You haven't gotten away from the violent person. Whatever it was that was afflicting you in the dream. The whole thing is gone. Why? Because it was a projection of the mind. So, in our waking state, we're spiritually sound asleep. Varana Shakti. I do not know that I am Krishna. I am that witnessing consciousness. Then Vikshepa Shakti. I think I'm Jim. I think I'm my body. Boy, do I have problems. And I gotta work hard and struggle and suffer. The suffering is kama, karma, craving, propels me into ego-prompted action, which continues to reinforce the issue. Krodha, I'm just pissed off, annoyed, upset all the time. So here Krishna is identifying the problem. Ego always says what I need to do is resolve the struggle of ego. I need to get what I want. Krishna is saying it's the craving itself that is making me suffer. Now, if you've gone on a retreat of some length of time, a lot of my students have been doing Vipassana retreats, which I think is wonderful. Who's done one of those? So what happens when an issue arises on the retreat? What happens?
Just have to sit with it, kind of. Do you mean like within yourself? Or?
Yeah, like, so tell me about one particular klesha or issue that arose in a meditation retreat.
There was a carnal craving that arose, and I just had to sit with
So you didn't get up and go get laid?
it. No.
No! What'd you do?
Just 5 days of just chilling.
Don't just do something. Sit there, right?
Yes.
And what happened to the carnal experience?
Immediately was gone when we finally got to talk. It was interesting.
Ego says, the way I need to get rid of my suffering is to resolve the struggle of ego. Yoga says, don't worry. First of all, it's just a silly old mind state. It will pass. And if you don't keep reinfecting it, back to addiction. Person starts to go through withdrawal. You've got two choices at that point. Reinfect the body with their drug of choice, which temporarily alleviates the symptoms of withdrawal. Or put them in the hospital and have a medically supervised detox. And after a few days, guess what happens? Your body is drug free. Now, there's other things that may have to happen, but your body no longer craves it. The restlessness of the mind still needs to be dealt with. Comparatively easy to stop. It's staying stopped. That's the problem. Does that make sense, Nikki?
Yeah.
And if you keep taking the drug, the problem never goes away. What do you and I do? It's the wrong partner. Let me dump him and get another one. It's the wrong job. I'll get another one. It's the wrong house. I'll get another one. But if you're like me, I joke with people, I was married for 10 years, same relationship, only the names and faces change. Sound familiar?
Jim,
Yes.
Fang actually has a question. She's not able to unmute herself or something. So she's written it on the chat window and wants someone to ask it for her.
Please.
So her question is related to what you were just discussing. What's the difference between Swadharma and following your Swadharma versus following your desires?
Whether or not you have the quality of insistence. So let me give you a real live example. I was working with someone this morning and we're reading a marvelous book called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. He was a very famous Tibetan Lama. Now, when the Chinese invaded Tibet, Trungpa took a whole group, I think there were about 30 of them, across the Himalayas into India in winter. Terrible hardship. Once he got out of Tibet, he ends up going to England. And he got a degree from Cambridge in English literature, spoke English at the level of being able to write poetry. And he walked around in a black business suit with a white shirt and a tie. Got married. But in time, Naropa Institute gets formed. Or was it Enigma Institute? I think it was Naropa. Yeah. In other words, his Swadharma was to be a lama. And it never left him. But he was perfectly willing to go study English at Cambridge. It's okay. We act in the world, but let go of the results. And what I like to say is do what you love. But if you find in your life you cannot do what you love, work on loving what you're doing. Right where I am is everything I need in order to be happy. And don't worry, Swadharma will right itself. If it's your Swadharma, you will find yourself doing it. It'll just happen. You don't have to push, you don't have to force. It will happen. And remember, I think it was last week, better one's own dharma, even if done poorly and devoid of merit, than the dharma of another, no matter how meritorious. If you get an idea in your head, oh, I should be blah, 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 and it's not your nature, there's always attention. So what is a great challenge for many of us is we're adults, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and we've always been operating from what the psychologists call superego. This is what my parents said I'm supposed to do. This is what my culture says I'm supposed to do. This is what my peers say I'm supposed to do. This is what my fear says I'm supposed to, because it's safe. And what yoga says, what is it that you enjoy doing? So Wendy, if I may use you as an example,
Sure.
because of COVID, your restaurants get closed.
Mhm.
Did you become an architect?
No,
What are you doing?
cooking.
Again? Yeah, I think that might be your Swadharma, you know?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And you enjoy it.
I love it.
Yeah. No, you're not rich and famous,
No,
but you're cooking.
yeah.
Does that make it a bit clearer?
She won't be able to
Oh, she
respond.
can't respond.
Okay, so it's not about having. It's not about getting. It's about doing. Pay attention to what is it that you enjoy doing. Swadharma always communicates as work. Now, we can superimpose stuff on even our Swadharma. Oh, I'm not good enough. What do they think of me? That's, oh, I had a ton of that in my singing career. Just a ton of it. All right, next verse.
Jim, sorry, this is Sheila again. Hi, I just had a question about Swadharma.
Yeah.
So can there be like a bad Swadharma to have? Meaning like, say, it's my Swadharma to be in the joy of cooking and being with spices and food, that's just my Swadharma, but is there a bad Swadharma? Like I want.
Well, there are ones that are counterproductive and people cannot help but live them out. So institutions, jails, rehabs, etc., are filled with people who cannot help themselves and they live antisocial lives. And in their mind, they have a great rationale. Well, this is freedom. You know, and it may cause people to suffer. But if that's where we keep ending up, now that doesn't mean they're going to have to stay that way forever. Or you may be a really good kindergarten teacher, incredibly effective with children in Ukraine, in the Donbass, and then Russia invades your country. And especially if you were a man, next thing you know, you're behind an artillery piece. Swadharma may be to be a teacher, but that's not where your karma put you. That's where you're supposed to be for now.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next verse. What number are we on now?
We're on 40 right now. Indriyani mano buddhir asyadhisthana muchyate tatair vimohayatyesha jnana mavritya dehinam. The senses, the mind, and the intellect are said to be its seat. Through these, it deludes the embodied by veiling their wisdom.
Yes. So what is desire? It arises in the mind with the feeling of being restless, discontent. Then the intellect comes in with an idea. I want X, Y, and Z. And then the senses report desirable objects, undesirable objects, desirable situations, undesirable situations. Who had a crappy experience this week? Yeah. You would know that it was crappy if your sense hadn't reported it to you. Seeing, hearing, etc. So your senses report it. Your mind reacts. Your intellect says, that's what caused it. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to do this. I don't want to have this anymore. I want to have that. What Krishna's going to say is you can have a peace of mind that's independent of the circumstances of the world. As long as I give up my attachment. Now, I mentioned Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. That's a favorite phrase of Shankara, where he says, Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is unreal. This is known as discrimination between the real and the unreal. And then he immediately follows up with the next practice, which is Vairagya. The root is raga, which means passion. Note, it doesn't say aragya. Is the prefix, which means not. This stone is aragya. Doesn't want anything. It's completely inert. Doesn't like pasta. Doesn't want to get laid. Doesn't want to go to the symphony. Aragya. No feelings. That is not good yoga. Do not aspire to aragya. Can't be done for a human being. Vairagya, the prefix is V. Because of Sandhi, it changes to Vi. What is V? V is a superlative. It means either beyond, it can sometimes mean the opposite. What is the definition of vairagya? That desire, you will not achieve it overnight, to give up all attachments to enjoyments gained through the senses. And that desire to give up all identifications with any personal sense of self, starting from the body, all the various subtler ego states, up to and including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a powerful person. Trump tries to be Brahma, the creator. So those two are the wings of the Hansa that takes us on the flight to the infinite, the mythical bird. Viveka, Vairagya. Those two together. How do we conquer Vama? Through insight. You can never do it out of willpower. Back to what we were saying, I do not do that which I would do, and I do that which I hate. Willpower is wimpy. We have to have the insight, think it through. Think through. Understanding the whole phenomenon of how Bhoga, it's the craving itself that hurts. Satisfying the desire at best will give me a temporary rest. Then let go. Let go. Just don't do something, stand there. Just don't do something, sit there. And if you have difficulty letting it go, get over your cheap self and go serve another person. The most powerful ways. I had so many problems. My needs, my problems, my suffering. Nobody knows the suffering I have. Get over it. Why don't you make yourself useful? Serve. Serve. What does it do? It other centers the attentive faculty. The most painful position of the mind is, how am I doing? Am I okay? What do they think of me? True story. A very, very dear friend who's Jewish. He was visiting his mother in Texas. They got into a fight. She storms out of the room, goes into her bedroom and slams the door. 10, 15 minutes later, he comes in, opens the door. There's his mother curled up in a fetal position, staring at the wall. He says, Mom, what are you doing? She says, don't bother me. I'm reviewing my misery. Is that what you and I do? It's funny when you hear the story, but it's tragic. It's tragic. Self-pity is a klesha. It's an affliction. It's a character defect. Find a solution. All right, next verse.
Tasmat tvamindriyarn yadau Niyamya Bharatarshaba Papmano Prajahihyenam Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Therefore, O best of the Bharatas, controlling first the senses, kill this sinful thing, the destroyer of knowledge and wisdom.
So again, this is done through insight. In the beginning, think the whole process through. This is what Swamiji used to call sublimation of our cravings. I like to use the example many of us can relate. It's you're in college, Friday night, you're in the dorm, you've got a really important test or a paper due on Monday, and your friends say, we're going out for pizza and beer. Come on, join us. There's a piece of it that goes, oh, I'd really like to do that. But another part of your mind says, no, I really want to do well on this paper. I really want to do well on this exam. No, you guys go on without me. So we focus on something that's more rewarding, something that's more important to us. So as yogis, we sublimate these addictive tendencies of the mind into our mumukshutva, desire for liberation. Practically speaking, learning how to keep the mind intensely introverted. Or what Anand was talking about. How if you're sitting in meditation, all these various things arise and you just watch them. So my suggestion, take some time, like walk through a park. Try to keep your mind still, doing meditation in action. You see a leaf, you see a dog, you see a flower, you see a piece of paper. Try to keep your mind still, not letting your energy gush out, creating stories of likes and dislikes. This process is called shama. Next verse.
Indriyani paranyahur indriyebhyah param manasastu para buddhir yo buddhe paratastu saha. They say that the senses are superior to the body. Superior to the senses is the mind. Superior to the mind is the intellect. One who is even superior to the intellect is he, the Atman.
Yes. So the practice that's implied here is maintain the practice we call sakshi bhava, attitude of the witness. When you see the mind extrovert into a desire, oh, look at that. We learn as yogis that just because I have a desire does not mean I need to take an action. Just watch it. Superior to the body, the sense organs, then the mind is more subtle. The intellect and its thoughts and stories is more subtle. Who sees it all? Stay identified. Is that it? Swamiji used to thunder. The way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. Is there one more or two more? Read more. Just read
1, 2.
Okay.
Evam buddhe param buddha samstabhyatmana matmana jahi shatrum mahabaho kamarupam durasadam. Thus, knowing the Atman, who is superior to intellect, and restraining the self by the self, slay you, O mighty armed, the enemy in the form of desire, no doubt hard indeed to conquer.
Yeah. So basically here, Vasana causes me to forget who I am. First comes the disquiet, I'm irritable, restless, discontent. Then up will pop a desire. Then I will be impelled into action to repeat that desire. If I go ahead and act on that, it will reinfect the mind. Whole process keeps going. Here Krishna is saying, do your best to remember who you are. Chidananda Rupaham. Shivoham, Shivoham. I'm of the form of this consciousness. Why is my mind jonesing or craving? Simply the force of the past. No big deal. You're not impelled to go down that road. Even if I don't act, I don't need to get caught up in the story. Get out. This abandonment of the sense of agency. I am not the doer, not the enjoyer, it's just the mind. I am the witness. That's the practice. We will talk about this much more in the next chapter. Now, one more verse or two.
It's just the final breath now for the.
Okay.
Is this read in the tune, or is it just
Hit the
verse?
Just chant it straight out.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad
Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyaye
Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Karma Yogo Nama Trityo Dhyayaha.
Thus in the abridgment.
Thus in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the third discourse ends entitled the Karma Yoga.
Yoga. Absolutely one of the most beautiful, powerful chapters in the book. One that we can study over and over. All right, we'll end here tonight and start on Jnana Yoga next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha. Hari Om.